large fry well.
3 chili cheese fries, 6 quesadillas, 1 medium Coke, easy ice, 1 large Coke, extra ice.
So we are here today with Sylvia Ray, who directed The Middle, that'll be showing at the Coconut Grove Film Festival. Sylvia, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's a new year. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you for being here with us. I thought your film was so unique, how it portrays the challenges we face as a teenager and a lot of those emotions we face as we're growing up. And you mentioned in your biography that you had an upbringing in a small desert town and you often draw inspiration for that. So I wanted to ask, how did this film come about, and are there any personal ties to the story?
Yeah, so I'm from a small town called Barstow, California. It's in between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. It's in the middle of nowhere. And there's nothing to do there. And I spent, all my teen and formative years there. And so when tackling writing a feature film, I just intuitively found inspiration there in my youth. So this film, which is a short, it started off as a feature script, and it navigates the question of right and wrong and the in-between, and all of the things that we face growing up unsupervised in a small town. And at the time, I don't remember which year, maybe a year and a half ago, a feature that I was attached to fell through. And at that point, I had been directing some things as a director for hire. And so it had been several years since I had directed something that I've written. And so when that fell through, I was like, I'm going to take my feature and I'm going to make my proof of concept. And that's where the short film came about. And thankfully, we were able to actually shoot in my hometown in some of the locations that I wrote to, like Sawtooth Canyon, which is like a place where people would go in the desert and drink and get in trouble. And one of the original Del Tacos, which is in Barstow, we were really fortunate enough to be able to shoot there because it's like the place everyone goes after a softball game or a basketball game or whatever. And it just is huge, and the town really, really loves it. And also shooting in my hometown, a lot of the community came out and came through with support for me and for the film, whether that be catering or vehicles, picture cars, or even background work, which is like really makes the film, in my opinion, and it wouldn't be as I think high production value if they were not involved. So I have a deep gratitude to my town and the people there for sure. But in terms of like if it was like inspired by real life scenarios, I do have a brother that's older, and at the time when we were teens, he was a troublemaker and would make rash decisions that would affect his life and the people around him. He's a family guy now and all of that, but at the time he was really bad. So part of that was kind of unpacking my feelings about that, and just understanding now as a mom, I have 2 kids, like how, one wrong choice can derail someone's life, and like the fear that entails, like as a mother, does that make that person bad? Does that make that person good? So a lot of those questions are things that I'm exploring, and also ride or die culture, like just as a friend or as a person, like how far would I go to protect people and when they make decisions that I wouldn't necessarily make. So yeah, that the feature and the short just like kind of explores a lot of that, and those are questions I have every day anyway. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so incredible that your community came together and you were able to go back and actually film in your hometown and do work there that kind of resonates with you. Now, you had mentioned this is part of a feature film. I know in your director's statement you said this is kind of a teaser for that feature that's going to follow Joanna's life and as she's kind of following that wrong crowd. Could you touch a little bit more on that longer project?
Sure, yeah. Well, and I wouldn't necessarily say wrong crowd because I believe like that's debatable. um, but yeah, so the short film really is the inciting incident for the feature. And so in the feature, she makes a decision, whether that be to tell or to not tell the cops or whoever that this accident happened and they were involved. So we see the consequences of that. Initially, her choice really eats her alive, and we get a bit of paranoia, we get grief coming in that just kind of becomes a pressure cooker for her life, and things start to unravel. She's in softball, her grades, her friend group, everything just really starts to unravel and eats her alive. Ultimately, she does make a different choice in the end, but the audience is left deciding whether or not that was the right choice. Because there really wasn't a win-win situation when a tragedy happens and you're involved and you have to lie for people and all of these things. So essentially, that's what the feature is about, and I'm really excited to tackle that this year. Trying to find investors and find grants, and really, really gung ho about getting it off the ground. So wish me luck.
Ah, well, best of luck to you. I was going to ask, what's the timeline looking on that project? So have you finished the script for the feature?
Yeah, the script has been finished for a while, but it's been rewritten and rewritten. I'm going to open it up this week again for a grant. But yes, it's ready, and we're raising funds. We have a small percentage of the budget already. I have fiscal sponsorship. I'm talking to investors, and me and my producers are really just like looking under every rug. Um, but it is what it is. Like, everyone has the same struggle. But I've been making short films and web series pilots and short form content for, I don't know, around 8 years, give or
Oh,
take.
wow.
And some of my films have gone to really wonderful film festivals, and each film that I make, I feel like I am developing in my craft and in my style as a storyteller and a filmmaker. And I'm like bursting at the seams, like ready. so, so it's gonna happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck with this project. I want to touch on, you said that you've seen your craft developing as you've been working on these different projects. What has been the biggest change from when you first started working in the film industry to what you see your work doing now?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I feel like when I first started, you go in to this really naive and not knowing all the lessons that you're meant to learn on this journey. And so now that I'm now I will say I am directing more things that I write, which I think informs the way that I direct. I have also been developing my relationship with actors and how I interact and communicate with them, and understanding their craft more over the years, whether that be through experience or through research or workshops even. And I think that has a huge impact in the impact of my films. Um, and yeah, it's funny. I am finding my taste and owning what it is that I like and what I gravitate towards. But it's gonna be ever evolving. So it's not. I wouldn't say like I'm done like growing in my craft. Like it's just gonna be continuous. But it is very fruitful and rewarding to see how far I've come.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel excited about the future, knowing there's so much more of a ways to go. And I'll look back at the very, very beginning and be like, wow, I did that.
That's awesome. It's great to see that you can actually recognize how you've been able to develop. I want to go back. You mentioned in your director's biography that you really like to explore uncomfortable feelings in your work. And I was curious like why you gravitate to those kinds of stories and how you try your best to portray those on the screen.
I think that comes from like how I am as a person. I don't really wear my heart on my sleeve. I went through a lot of like, I guess, grief as a kid. I lost my father. I lost a best
I'm so
friend.
sorry.
And so, but because of that, like I have developed into a person that doesn't really like open up a lot in terms of like my deep sea, like I don't even know if those feelings are there. And so when I write and when I want to work with actors or when I work with actors, like it's like magic just watching actors work and really have that vulnerability and openness. And it's almost like living, like having my catharsis through them as I make these films. So maybe that's why I like not intentionally go towards difficult scenarios. It's just because, you know, I'm genuinely happy in my everyday life, and so I want to explore that and see like what can I unpack from like the past that
Yeah.
I can like have some catharsis around. Maybe I hope that answers the question. That's pretty tough.
That's so beautiful that like working on the films kind of helps you tackle and revisit some of those emotions, which is very good. And I think what a lot of good films do for people is they let them experience those emotions again and work through it. I also want to touch on a different piece that you worked on, Preggers. For those who's not familiar, it's a story of a girl who finds out she's pregnant after meeting a witch and then has to face a challenging, life changing decision without the support of her boyfriend. Now, from what I've seen about your other work, it's similar to The Middle in that the main character is facing a very hard decision on their own. Did you learn anything
Yeah.
from working on the story of Preggers that you were able to bring into your work on The Middle?
Yeah, oh, no, that's really interesting. Preggers really has, like, it balances tone. There's a bit of comedy, there's a bit of dark comedy, and drama. So, with each of my projects since then, there is a bit of like dialing, you know, how dramatic are we going to go when the comedy comes in? Like, is it going to deflate the drama? You know, like, so it's a lot of these balancing acts that I've been trying to get good at. But Preggers was a really wonderful experience because I got brought on to direct, worked with a wonderful writer, Marco Parra, who is one of the actors, and we developed it together for the screen. And then from there, we just it was like a really interesting timing because at the time we were doing our festival run, Roe v. Wade happened, and it was a way for my activism to come out where I'm like in my normal everyday life, like I'm a mom, like where I'm not like super vocal with things, or impactful, I guess. And for me, having Preggers was the extension of how I felt, and what we wanted to say, which is like if the roles were reversed, it wouldn't be this way.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I love Preggers. It was really fun to work
That's
on that.
awesome. Now, I know you just mentioned for Preggers, you didn't write it, but you helped work to develop the script a bit. And now you did write The Middle and you're directing a lot more projects that you write. What has that shift been like for you, where you have a little bit more control over the story with now writing and directing your own films?
Um, it's so I feel that it feels a little more vulnerable. So like working with collaborators where I'm not the full owner of this story, there's less of a responsibility. Like I have a responsibility in my role as a director and to make it as good as possible, and to do all of my things that I do, but at the end of the day, it's ours. You know, and it does feel it's a big collaboration with The Middle and The Vote, which I directed last year. And people had a lot of influence in terms of like how we were making the film, but the seed of the story was mine. There's somewhat of a personal aspect to it, and I directed it, and now I'm showing it to the world. It just feels like a little scarier,
Okay.
which I think is a positive thing in terms of someone who like chose to be an artist. And I think that it helps me grow into the next thing. So now that when I go back to things that I haven't written and direct things that I haven't written, I feel like I'll have like I still want to make it like mine. I want to feel as attached to it as possible, and I feel like I'll enjoy the process more. Because I do eventually want to be a television director, in which case I wouldn't write things.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Right.
and so my big thing is just I love directing. If I'm writing it or not, like, I just want to tell. It's like if the script is good, then I'm happy, you know.
Absolutely. What's the draw to television for you?
I love television. I watch it all the time. Maybe too much. But I like the idea of following characters over a period of time that you don't necessarily get in a film. I love films, obviously, too, but to be a part of like a story that potentially audiences will feel like so close to is exciting for me. And I think that I'm well suited to work with various crews because I know the atmosphere is a little different in television than it is with film, and I feel like I'm well suited to like kind of jump in and like shape things and then like bounce out and adapt. I'm very adaptable. I feel like I don't know. I just think I would really like it, and yeah, I've shadowed on an episode of The Rookie before, and I want to continue. I always submit to the programs, all of the programs, and hoping to eventually get there as I continue to write and develop my own things.
Absolutely. Well, that is so incredible. And that's so unique that you want to make that shift, but you're doing great work now. I know I enjoyed the middle, and I hope the rest of our audience at the film festival gets to as well. I want to thank you so much for your time today, Sylvia, and we're so honored to be playing your film this year.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having the middle.
Of course.